In the same hour, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. Those words are recorded in Daniel chapter 5. You know, when something is a foregone conclusion, someone will say, the handwriting is on the wall. That means that although the event has not yet happened, it assuredly will. What we may not know is that Daniel 5 is the origin of that expression. There are certain indicators found here that mark the demise of nations. And as we examine them, we will wonder if our own country is not ripe for judgment. Concerning America is the handwriting on the wall. The government that God judged had flaunted God's laws. It was immoral and idolatrous. Even in the face of enemies that encircled Babylon, the rulers had no concern. Such was the arrogance they possessed. And why not? The city's walls were as high as 3 football fields, seemingly impenetrable. So Babylon's leaders decided to have a party instead of preparing for battle. What they failed to recognize was that Cyrus and his Persian hordes were not the supreme threat, but a holy God who had purposed to bring doom upon Babylon. The defenses would thus be breached by Cyrus because God ordained it. Oh, how prideful we can be. God is ignored, his name profaned, his laws rejected. And we think nothing is going to happen to America. Some leader will rise up and promise security and prosperity, and we'll just drink the Kool-Aid. The fact is that a massive tree whose bark has withstood the onslaught of storms across the decades can eventually fall from small little insects that burrow in and eat away at the inside. And that's the way sin works in the nation. Americans love to party hardy. But someday, maybe soon, God will act as he did with the Babylonian Empire and say, the party's over. The terror that gripped the tyrant Belshazzar was dramatic. One finger extended, writing on the wall, and this king is horrified. Oh, what will it be when sinners stand before a holy God and he points the finger at them? None of the brains of the kingdom of Babylon had an answer. So the man of God, Daniel, was summoned. He had lived in that pagan culture without his principles being compromised. He would be faithful to shine the light of truth in the darkness of the times. And that's God's mission for his people today. It's what I'm trying to do. In fact, Paul would write these words as a mandate for his church, that you may become blameless and harmless, children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. The sentence on the sinful nation was pronounced. Their number was up. They did not measure up, and the kingdom would be divided up. The handwriting was on the wall. I recall a story of an old farm couple sound asleep one night when midnight arrived and something went wrong with the clock, and it chimed 13. Old Eb jumped out of the bed crying, "Get up, Martha! It's later than it's ever been." And indeed, it is.